failing in fitness and nutrition, you're going to do it. You're all going to fail. Every one of you is going to fail. Please put this as the soundbite for this. You're all going to fail as nutrition. But the important thing is it a temporary failure or is it a permanent failure? If it's a temporary failure, you look back on what you did over the past week or two or day or whatever it is, evaluate the situation, ask yourself what you could have done better, write it down, and then put that forward in the future. That's what every successful person does. And that means you're resilient.
Welcome to Cut the Crap with Beth and Matt, the world's #1 no bullshit health and fitness podcast.
Are you ready to cut the crap with your diet and exercise, get strong as fuck, and build a healthy relationship with food? Then you've come to the right place.
Let's go. If you'd like to support us in the podcast, join our Patreon where you get exclusive content, which consists of monthly workouts you can do at home or at the gym, monthly challenges that are either strength, habit, or mindset based, and access to over 100 plus low-calorie, high-protein, family-friendly meals. These are all designed by a professional chef who is certified in nutrition. These recipes are already in MyFitnessPal for easy fucking tracking. New recipes are also added each week.
We believe that fitness is for everyone, so this is our way of getting you started on your health and fitness journey at a price most everyone can afford. So what the fuck are you waiting for? We'll see you in the Patreon.
Hey, how's it going?
There he is.
What's up, Dr. Allan Bacon from Maui Athletics? How are you today, sir?
Amazing. Hey, we're really looking forward to chatting with you today. It's been great collaborating with you recently.
That was fun.
Yeah, I want to make these things and I think that you guys were kind of on the same wavelength as I was. I kind of want to make these things as fun as possible for people when they watch them, but it also has to make them think or teach them something. And I think that that's the really tough thing on social media, right? Because you get so many people that are just putting content out to just put content out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what are we actually doing to help people? And so if we can teach them that they can curse, I think that we're doing a good job.
Fuck yeah.
Oh my God. I didn't tell you this. Well, I didn't tell you this. So when I was thinking about different ways to be able to present it in that reel, one of the things that I thought of was I have like the cutest 8-year-old little boy neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to his dad and I was like, would you be okay with your kid cursing? And he's like, why? And so at the end, I kind of wanted him to be like, please help us and please support us in spreading this message of how important fuck can be. And like something along those lines, but just having a little kid doing it, it almost felt to me like a Chappelle Show skit.
Yeah.
And he's like, are you suggesting that we have children curse? And I'm like, you're right. This is a bad idea. I was like, scratch that, ignore it.
I can't cite any research for that one.
Yeah. But I thought that it'd be really funny to have like a cute, innocent looking kid saying it. And then he kind of turned it around on me and he's like, we're very religious. And I was like, oh, all right.
That's
No,
yeah.
Know thy neighbor that very well on that one.
The kid just do this.
Yeah, I know. That was
The signature move. Just give him the bird.
My son does. My son swears all the time. Obviously, I mean,
so
mommy's 12.
I think the thing with parenting, as far as this goes, and obviously my opinion is probably shit because I don't have kids, but this is the way that I view it. Teaching, it doesn't help. This is kind of like sex education. Suggesting that it doesn't exist is bullshit.
Right.
So what you do is you teach them the appropriate times and situations that this may make sense.
Yeah.
And so just because your kid curses, to me, that doesn't seem like you're necessarily being a bad parent. If they're at a funeral and they're cursing up a storm, maybe that's a bad parenting. But, as long as you're teaching them, okay, this has an appropriate place and time, and comedy is a very appropriate place for this. I just think that being like, this is forbidden, just like with anything else. I mean, this is great because this is almost like a conversation that we can use for our nutrition clients. What happens when you tell people that something is forbidden?
You want to do it more. You want it.
People love to do it more, and it causes cognitive dissonance, and it causes, you can't have that donut. You can't curse. You can't do all these things. But all of a sudden, if you give people the ability to make the choice, you empower them and it loses that allure
Mm-hmm.
that it might have. It's like when an 18-year-old's drinking alcohol, all of a sudden they're drinking like assholes. Whereas once you turn like 21, 22, you're like, all right, I kind of got that out of my system. I'm going to do it a little bit more moderated. And then you're smarter about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny that we can bring this back to nutrition and everything like that, but it really does work that way. And it's amazing what you can do when you teach moderation, personal responsibility, personal choice. And then all of a sudden people can flourish.
Mm-hmm.
So soapbox, there you go.
Soapbox.
Right.
Flourish instead of just surviving, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that that's what we're all trying to go for, right?
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah.
I hate being told what I can't do, right? Like nobody enjoys being told what they can't do. And that's just the human nature of it. You tell me I can't do something, I'm going to rebel against it.
Well, it's almost a challenge.
Absolutely,
right?
for sure. You, Matt.
Me, at least.
It's almost a challenge, and
Yeah.
people will subconsciously accept that. By the way, I did want to say something before I forgot about it, Matt. When I asked you to wear a football jersey, I was going to completely cut your part out if it was a Steelers jersey.
Okay.
When I saw
I passed then.
when I saw it was Browns, I'm like,
Fuck the
okay, this
Steelers.
is acceptable. We can work with this.
Why are you against the Steelers?
I grew up in Maryland.
Oh, so are you a Baltimore Ravens fan?
Okay.
So here's the deal.
Because obviously I'm a Browns fan.
Oh yeah, but I'm a previous Baltimore fan.
Yeah.
As a previous Baltimore fan, I never felt like we were angry towards Browns fans.
We just are angry with you guys.
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh.
So here was my deal with the Ravens. I was a big Ravens fan up until the Ray Rice incident.
And
I think it would be hypocritical of me to leave a team because there's a criminal on the team, because then you can't follow anybody in the NFL.
right.
But
Right.
my issue with the Ravens was all of a sudden they turned around and they I don't know if you remember the specifics about that, but they turned to the woman that got beaten up in the elevator, and the management asked her to say, okay, I had a part in this argument.
Yeah.
And when that happened, I was like, all right, I'm out.
They were trying to give him an excuse to justify what he did, right? And there was no accountability. And thankfully he was, I mean, he never played it down again in the NFL after what he did, right? So
I mean, well, so for me, that was it wasn't the Ray Rice itself, it was what the management did. And I was like, I can't support this team anymore.
Yeah. I was torn. I'll be honest. Were you done? Were you finished with that?
Well, I'm going to make it even worse for how you feel about me, since I was originally a Baltimore fan. So my wife is from Boston, and we were living in North Carolina. We lived there for 10, 12 years. And that's when the Ray Rice thing happened. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I got to become a Carolina Panthers fan. I mean, I don't really have a connection to the team, but I may as well choose somebody like that.
Yeah.
And she was like, you're going to be a Pats fan now. And I was like, I don't know about that. She's like, no, you're a Pats fan. Because this is the one time that she was able to convert me. And I was like, okay, I guess. So I went from Baltimore to the Pats. So I didn't really step up my standing in the eyes of the nation.
I actually don't have anything against the Pats other than, I mean, Tom Brady's the GOAT. So I can't deny real greatness.
Yeah. I mean, I would think that at this point, it's probably general opinion that he's probably the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't think that he was the most skilled, but the greatest, yes. And I say that because there's no quarterback in history that could pull out a fourth quarter win like he could.
Right. He had the grit, right? He's not going to blow anybody away with his 4.4 time or his arm strength, but the
man ran like a baby deer.
Yeah, a wounded baby deer at that.
A wounded baby deer.
Which is also like me how I run too. I'm not a graceful runner.
So. Oh, I know. I saw that in your video.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, yeah, I totally see that.
Dude, I know this. I know. I think that you guys did a great job. I really do want to thank you for trusting me on that. You know, to essentially deliver with something with your names on it. But I think that's something that I'm very thankful for, and that you essentially let me do what I wanted to do with it without any questions.
For sure, man. Like, we respect the hell out of you, and we were honored that you asked. I mean, I was honored. I'm sure Beth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. For sure.
I love the collabs you do. Like, you collaborated with Alan Aragon, who's been on the podcast and we look up to, obviously big person in the industry. Is like, hell yeah, of course we'll do it with you.
You know, it's funny. I was actually talking to him about 5 minutes before getting on here, and I was like, I got to go. I'm getting on a podcast. he's like, "Oh, where are you going?" I was like, "Oh, I'm getting on with Beth and Matt." He was like, "I was with them. They're great. They're wonderful people to talk to." So it's always good to be able to spread that up.
Yeah.
When people say really good things about you, right? Because you don't necessarily always know what people are saying behind your back, but it's always nice to hear that it's nice.
That ain't
Yeah.
that the truth.
Oh yeah.
Ain't that the truth?
Absolutely right.
But he had some very good things to say about you guys,
Thanks,
and
Allan.
not just about character, which fuck character, who cares? But he said that you ran a really good podcast. You guys are very skilled at what you do, so that's always really nice to hear.
Look at that.
That's good to know.
We just feel like we're two babbling idiots.
I still feel like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
I mean, aren't podcasts about being babbling idiots, but in an amusing way?
Basically, yeah. And we've been babbling on here for almost 3 years now. So
yeah, and we just want to babble with our friends too. So
exactly.
These podcasts are really good ways to be able to stay in touch with people too.
Yeah. Nice. Exactly. It's like, oh, we want to talk to Allan Bacon. Let's just get him on the podcast so we can hang out.
Yeah.
The problem with talking with Allan Bacon is that you end up going down rabbit holes that you don't intend to go down.
We love rabbit holes.
We do love a good rabbit hole.
Yeah. So Allan, thanks for being here. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling everyone where you're from, what do you do, Allan?
My name's Allan Bacon. I am a personal health and physique coach these days. I live in Maui, Hawaii. And I think that, what would you say that I do? Is my thing, I kind of help debunk the myth.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're a debunker. You're a debunker.
Yeah, definitely a debunker.
In the best way.
I debunk the myths that surround the fitness industry. And a lot of people, I feel, in our field are afraid to touch that type of stuff. And a lot of people are afraid to touch that type of stuff because they don't want to rock the boat. But I think that it almost is a necessity these days with the way the social media is set up. And you can agree or disagree with me on this point or not. I think that social media has a tendency to push bad information. And in my view, the reason that it does that is because the way that social media algorithms are set up, they're set up based off of interaction. And if you make an inflammatory or hyperbolic claim, you're going to get all of the people that believe in pseudoscience or whatever you're spewing, and they will hit like and they'll comment. And then at the same time, you're going to get everybody that's like, wait, this is wrong. And they'll start to comment. And so what ends up happening for people that use these grandiose claims or misrepresent, the information around health and fitness, they get double the interaction rate in general. Mm-hmm. Which is why you see these accounts that have millions of followers, and they're the worst sources of information.
Oh my God, it's insane.
Absolutely. I don't know of anybody that's over 1 million followers that isn't just completely full of shit.
I mean, it's like exponential growth, as their following grows. The
worse. Yeah, the worse your information is, the higher follower count. Yeah, I mean, there seems to be this range between about like 2,000 or 3,000 and maybe like 400,000 and 500,000 where you get some really, really good information.
All right, we're all good here.
Yeah. I'm okay for now.
But this is what I see. And I hope that you guys grow beyond that, because I know that you guys put out good information and you're doing it for the right reasons. I'm skeptical that it's going to happen for a lot of us that have good information because of the way that the algorithm works. And I will challenge people. Look at all of the people with 1 million followers or more. Mm-hmm. There is a better chance than not that they have no idea what they're doing.
They're very few and far between the good scientific accounts. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, what they're doing is they're leaning on a couple things. They're leaning on misrepresenting research. They're leaning on appeals to nature fallacies. And they're leaning on the fact that their follower count is so high that no one will ever call them out on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're scared, they're afraid of it, right? Like because of the pushback.
You don't want to be blackballed when an industry, and these people tend to have the larger podcasts that make people grow really, really well. I mean, you go on one of the gurus podcasts and all of a sudden you have tons of followers.
Right.
And so a lot of times
but you can pay to be on those podcasts too, a lot of the times.
Really?
You can?
Yeah.
Well,
it's a thing.
You can pay to be on that, and you can pay to be on
it's a thing.
And you can pay to be on TEDx.
Yeah, it's despicable. Yeah.
And so when people say I've done TED Talks, that doesn't.
Everybody doing TED Talks these days
because TEDx is a paid for content.
Mm.
And so these people will essentially misrepresent both the research and themselves, and then everybody's afraid to call them out. And I think that that's why myth busting can be so beneficial, because as a creator, if you come out with information it is harder for that to gain traction if you just present the information, because I think by and large, people kind of know what they should be doing. I think that people are rather intelligent. I think that they get lost in the weeds and the specifics because something new seems interesting. And so if I were to tell you, hey, if you ice bathe for 3 minutes, you're going to raise your dopamine 250%. This is actually something that was said by a person that has 3 million followers, and everybody ran with it. Nobody checked.
By how much percent?
250.
I heard another similar claim by a very large account with ice bathing about how many calories it burned. It was like,
did you see the one that I actually covered that? Did you see that?
That's where I saw it then. Okay, so you did that video then.
Well, I did the debunking of that video, and I pointed out
I think I just saw the original then. Okay, can you tell me about that video then?
Well, that's the one where if you actually look at the data, it's about if you sit in ice 24 hours, it raises your RMR by like 50 calories.
Oh, wow.
So if you want to eat an extra half a Snickers bar, you can sit in ice all day, but wouldn't just like walking for 10 minutes be better?
Right.
So, and this is the problem with some of these things. And so as an example with this influencer that pushed the ice bathing for 3 minutes and you get a 250% dopamine increase, he was referencing a study by Sramic 2000. And he completely misrepresented it, and no one checked to see. And it just spread.
That's what they hope for, right?
Yes. And in the actual study, it showed that the guys stayed in ice up to their neck for an hour, and it did raise dopamine. It was like 242%. So that was accurate. However, if you look at other data, you can get a similar rise in dopamine with 10 minutes of stationary bike cycling. You can get a similar rise with meditation. You can get a similar rise with listening to music. You can get a similar rise with jogging. You can get a similar rise with any form of exercise. And it takes less time. So rather than sitting in ice, which is going to lower hypertrophy and anabolism, from your training that you're doing in the week, for a minimal rise in dopamine for the effort that's put in. He said 3 minutes when the study didn't even remotely look at that.
So he just completely pulled that out of his ass then.
Made it up. Nobody called him out on it. And so these are the types of things that you see. And on top of that, if you look at the data for icing and dopamine, the more often you do it, the less of a dopamine rise there is. So these people that are thinking, oh, I'm going to do this multiple times a week and I'm going to be mentally healthy. And then all of a sudden you just realize you just spent $800 on an icing tub and you're freezing your balls off constantly for
dink is shriveling up into your asshole. I mean,
yeah. And so this is just one example. And you could literally talk all day about examples like this.
Yeah.
But I think that myth busting in a way is almost necessary today because there's no oversight in this industry. There are very few people that are going to call these people out, and it is taking focus away from what is truly important for the common person and putting it on minutia bullshit.
Yeah.
And essentially what we're doing is we're lowering collective intelligence and we are wasting people's time. Instead of, hey, can you go for a walk? For those 10 minutes instead of,
oh my God.
Can you
louder for the people in the back? Go for a fucking
Are you guys listening to this? Because
can you take this time in meal prep? I mean, how many times have you worked with clients and they're like, oh, I ate off plan, and eating off plan, depending on how you set up your plan, there's not necessarily anything wrong with it. What is wrong with it is if you are not preparing to succeed, you're going to have a lot of problems. So if we're spending our time sitting in ice instead of taking 5 minutes and throwing a week's worth of rice or chicken into an Instapot, what are we doing with our time? And what are we doing as coaches and health professionals? We're not instilling good into people. We are sabotaging them. And this is blatant sabotage.
Yeah.
And
it's like I was going to say, it's like the people going, I've with all the cortisol shit, I've had DMs from nurses and doctors saying there's an influx of people going to get their cortisol levels checked. And they're like, make it stop because this is out of control. It's like you're wasting your time in the medical field as well by getting these unnecessary tests when you just need to get some fucking sleep and eat some fiber and walk. You know?
And again, this is why it enrages me so much and why I don't feel bad about doing some of the debunking stuff, because every time I work with with somebody, and you know, I'll do collabs with different people all over, you know, social media, and we do the debunking things, and I feel like they're very, very helpful because if you can show what the person is claiming, you can directly address it, and people actually pay attention because usually when it's presented by these influencers, it's done with such zeal or such anger or such, you know, that all of a sudden people stop and watch. Whereas if you just present the information, nobody gives a shit. And nobody gives a shit because you kind of already know it. You know, people know what they're supposed to be doing. They may not know the very specifics, but they know generally what you're supposed to do. And I actually find that a motto that you can teach clients, and for anybody listening, is if you ever get caught and you don't know what to do and you find yourself, I've got so many options, I am procrastinating because I'm just overwhelmed. Ask yourself, what would a healthy person do in my situation? 99% of the time, you're going to know the answer, and it cuts through that bullshit so you can make the right choice. The problem with these people is that, you know, if we just present the information, it's almost boring to people. So you have to present both sides to be able to say, look, you need to consciously think about why this might be manipulation. So you're able to view this through the proper lens as you move forward in the health and fitness industry, because the reality is it's a hard world out there.
Yeah. Very hard world out there. And what you just said there a minute ago too about like the anger and the heavy reactions, the big reactions are what get the engagement. And I can definitely attest to that personally. All the viral videos I've gotten that are million plus are probably me eliciting some type of a strong emotional response. The ones where I'm cool, calm, and collected, just talking to people, those don't go viral, right? They don't.
Look at Beth.
Yeah.
Beth is a prime example of this, but Beth uses her power for good, not evil.
For sure.
So this is where I really want to stress that Beth is using this same strategy. I don't debunk her because I like her message and I like where she's going, because she's not trying to fuck people over.
Right.
And so Beth uses the exact same. I don't want to talk about you in the third person. I'm talking about you because I want to emphasize that Beth does good.
Yeah, that Beth, she sucks.
Beth, yeah. Beth, what she does is
right now.
yeah, she's like, am I even part of this podcast? But what she does is she uses this exact same emotional response without the hyperbole and bullshit, because Beth will be like, you fucking fucks, go eat some vegetables. And all of a sudden people will say, oh, maybe I should eat some vegetables.
I am a fuck, I should eat some vegetables.
And so it's a similar thing to throwing out that point counterpoint, but she does it to pass her message. But the root effect is still there, and whether or not we want to agree with it, we're very emotional beings.
Yeah.
And connecting with people can be difficult in a lot of ways. So you got to find the right way to connect with people, but hopefully you're using it to spread the right message.
Yeah,
Agreed.
that's the thing.
Yeah. It's not the delivery that really we care about. It's the message behind it that's important.
Yeah, and for me, I go into it talking to as if I was going to talk to my best friend, because how you see me on social media is literally me.
It is. She's called me out a lot of times on things.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. It would be something I'd be say to Matt.
It is. I can vouch for this.
What the fuck are you eating right now?
Yeah, but that's how you know that somebody is actually a good friend, when it is blunt. You kind of want somebody to be blunt and honest with you, and not in a dickish way, because you want them to do it in a way that's productive.
Empathetic and honest.
Empathetic and honest is a good way to put it.
I like it. It's like stern. You're stern, right? We're not fucking around.
So if you look at my videos where like I'm not actually doing a debunking and I'm just giving it, I'm very even keel, and I'm almost I'm almost kind of like calm and sarcastic more than anything else.
Yeah.
And I think that until people really get to know me, it almost seems like off-putting. At least that's how I feel sometimes. And your delivery, I think people can relate to for somebody when they're just meeting them very, very in a short time span. I think that for the more even keel, kind of laid back with almost like a almost dark sense of humor and sarcastic sense of humor in the background, it catches people off guard.
Yeah.
And so by using the point counterpoint setup, it can kind of give people the idea of what we're discussing without like, oh, is he being a dick to me?
Right.
Got it. That's nice. I like that. It's good, good strategy.
And you guys run into all these issues with talking to people too. Your audience is going to react a little bit differently than someone else's audience. And so you make those personal connections however you can. And I mean, if we're all trying to spread the same message, it's great to see other creators like you guys, other coaches like you guys, because we're essentially giving the same message. We're just doing it in a different way, and different people will receive that differently. So we can each connect with a different type of person. My people just might be more boring than Beth's.
I doubt that. Well, your people are like us too, so like we're your people, you know. So they're not
exactly.
We're pretty fucking exciting, I think. So
I do too. I think that it's a great group to be a part of, you know, and I think that's one of the great things about these podcasts is you can start to get all these different people into one spot to talk about these things.
Yeah.
And even if we disagree about certain things, and good coaches will disagree on different things. I think that the core information is still the same. And for people that are listening, I think that it's great because you can get maybe multiple angles to attack a similar problem and try each one out, figure out which one works for you, and then make your toolbox based on the things that, you know, groove with you.
Yeah.
I love that you just said toolbox, because right before we recorded this, I recorded a video about emotional eating, and I was talking about that emotional toolbox. And so it's important to have these different skills and tools and coping mechanisms for everyday life, every situation. I love that.
I mean, it's different per person, and the more that you coach, I think the more that you realize that our job is less about knowing fitness and nutrition as it is about psychology.
Yes.
I agree.
I agree. Absolutely.
I agree. So much so that like I've literally been starting to talk with my girlfriend about like, what could I do to further my education in this field, right? Like, could I get into social worker? Because I'm really interested in the fucking brain, because that's really what we're helping our clients with, and myself and my own struggles. Like, it could help me understand myself better too.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of times the people that are really emotionally mature or insightful, I think that a lot of times it's because they had those problems to begin with. And this is not accusatory in any way. This is saying you had a reason, or the person that's looking into this had a reason to start investigating this, and they bettered themselves because of it. So then you can spread that message, I feel, more effectively.
I agree.
Because you learned to essentially overcome it in some way. And you know, there's a lot of stuff that I post on social media that's mindset driven. And I find it's probably the least well received stuff that I post.
But it's the most important.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's why I keep posting it. And I'm like, I know this one's not going to do well. I hope, you know, somebody gets something out of this. But you know, to your point, I think it's incredibly important. I mean, the differences between, as long as you're not doing something super stupid, people can do a very wide variety of suboptimal workout routines and still progress just fine. If you don't overcome those mindset hurdles that you have, it's not going to last. You're going to, the recidivism into, you know, weight regain, falling out of habits. I mean, it's just so bad.
Yeah.
And so even if this is not typically well-received content, it bears repeating.
I agree with that, because like, what do most people want? Well, it's like the fat loss, getting stronger, growing muscle, right? Okay, that's cool, but here's how you do that: by working on the mindset stuff, right? But that's not the sexy stuff that they want.
No, that's the hard part. A lot of people don't want to deal with their shit, you know?
It's fucking hard.
It's an extreme challenge for most people. And I think that the biggest challenges for most people in health and fitness are the things that you wouldn't expect. Mindset, number one. And then the next one that I find is overpowering to people, and something that I always stress is, once you reach that physique, this is typically more physique related. Once you reach that physique goal that you're going for, maintaining that is often harder than getting there. And maintaining it is harder than getting there, because say that you have a journey where you're trying to lose significant amounts of body fat. You know, every 2-3 weeks, you can have objective measures that show you that what you're doing is working. Then all of a sudden, you know, you go from, let's say you have a female that goes from 200 to 150 pounds. Now all of a sudden she feels really good about herself. She's got confidence. And then all of a sudden she stops seeing those weekly improvements in the scale, and the mirror doesn't change as much. It's because, you know, rate of fat loss starts to go down, and it becomes unsustainable with the way that she wants to live her lifestyle, but she's much happier now. So we start to get out of those habits that we were trying to build to get us to that spot. And so again, this is where setting up that mindset and habit routines and all those things become so critically important, because it's what's going to pull you through these times. And it's the thing that everybody wants to ignore.
As a parent, our days are filled with joy, challenges, and countless memories of connection. And let's be real here, more often than not, chaos can feel downright unavoidable. And in those moments, maintaining our peace and well being are absolutely crucial. And you should know by now that I love talking about all things mindfulness. So this message is for all you mindful parents out there seeking a natural path to tranquility and presence. Cured Nutrition understands the unique stressors we face every day. Whether it's waking up early to take the kids to school or playing taxi as you shuttle everyone from practice to practice, let's not forget that you still have your daily responsibilities with your own career. That's why they created their Serenity Gummies, your go-to ally in managing the complexities of parenthood with ease. These gummies aren't just a treat. They're a blend of science-backed, health-supporting ingredients like full-spectrum cannabinoids, ashwagandha, reishi mushroom, and L-theanine. Each ingredient is chosen for its ability to support your physical, mental, and emotional sense of calm. Now imagine unwinding from the day's hustle with a natural alternative to alcohol, helping you to improve your presence, mindfulness, and overall well-being. Now oftentimes we turn to alcohol as a way to alleviate stress, but take it from someone that has a long look at his relationship with alcohol. That really only makes things worse. The Serenity Gummies offer a more holistic tool to have in your arsenal so that you can feel good about feeling good. I personally enjoy the passion fruit flavor. It's sweet with some kind of an earthy undertone. I'm no expert when it comes to tasting things. I just know what works for me, what tastes good. In addition to that, each gummy is precisely dosed to guide me to my happy place. Now, Cured Nutrition is offering an exclusive 20% off discount just for our listeners when you purchase Serenity Gummies. Visit www.curednutrition.com/CTC and use coupon code CTC at checkout. That's CURED nutrition.com/CTC, coupon code CTC to embrace a state of relaxation and balance. Remember, protecting your peace is just one gummy away. Now take a moment for yourself and find serenity in the midst of life's whirlwind moments. Because you, as a parent, deserve to support your well-being and do something for yourself so you can continue serving others like the badass that you are. Protect your peace and pop a gummy.
The boring stuff. It's like you're not chasing. I don't know. I wouldn't want to call it a dopamine hit, but it's like the scale going down. It's almost like
it is a dopamine hit, and it's probably on par with icing.
Interesting. Okay.
In terms of
that makes,
I'm 100% making that up. I just wanted to bring it. Now we can start misrepresenting stuff.
You fucker. You say anything with enough confidence. And people,
I almost believed you.
Well, we were going to definitely talk about this. You weren't just going to get away with that one.
In 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going to have 1 million followers, and you guys are going to be sorry.
You know? Okay, so let's talk about that. That scale going down, or losing inches. You're chasing that thing, right? Could it be comparative to like a dopamine hit, and then suddenly you're in maintenance and you're not getting anything. You're just
I'm not joking. There is a dopamine hit from that. There you can literally look up research. I don't know if it's on par with the 250.
Okay,
I don't know the actual percent.
Right.
There is 100% a dopamine response when we feel complimented, when we feel like we're part of a group, when we feel accepted. I mean, literally all research that you look at. I mean, this is one of the reasons that people feel like there's an addictive trait to social media. Because all of a sudden you make a post and you get your first 100 likes and you're like, people like me. And that feels really good. People agree with me. People feel like my opinion or what I do matters. And that feels really good. And the same kind of thing happens when you are justified in the effort that you're putting in. You're feeling that you're rewarded on these fitness journeys. So there's 100% a dopamine hit. I don't know how extensive that hit is from a percentage standpoint. But there's 100% without question. And so when we're on our journey, the fat loss, this is anecdotal at best. I feel that based on who I work with, at least, fat loss is easier than gaining muscle. And I say that because fat loss, you tend to have reinforcement that is working every few. Whereas gaining muscle, you're like, hey, buddy, strap in. It's going to be 3 months before you notice anything. And, at the same time, They're slaving away cooking food. They're doing tons of dishes. They're potentially eating more than what their body wants to eat. I mean, I'm 180 pounds naturally. I have to force feed myself. I'm 225 right now. I have to force feed myself to be up to this weight.
Yep.
And so is that fun? No. Is that the goal that everybody else is going to have? No. But for people that actually have those goals, you have to mentally overcome the fact that you're going to have to delay gratification. And with fat loss, you get that gratification on a much more frequent scale than you do in anything else, unless you have, say, performance goals, which is a wonderful thing to have, but that's not what most people have.
Yeah.
So I think that there's certainly dopamine hits from these things. And when you start to get into maintenance, no matter what it is, or when you start to get outside of that beginner's gain stage, it becomes difficult. And that's where that mindset and habits, like we were talking about, is so critical. So if you can start to jam those home when you first start working with a person, or when you first start going on your journey, you're going to be much more successful, because that point in time is going to come where your progress is going to slow down, whether that's performance, fat loss, lean muscle gain, or whatever it is. And you're going to get into that grind. And it can become a real slog for people unless they, one, understand what benefits this really brings to them. That's the whole understanding your why part of the conversation. Or two, finds value in whatever they do. And you don't have to love working out. You don't have to love eating salad. You're a fucking adult, so you're going to eat the salad.
Right.
But you don't have to love it. But you can appreciate how it makes you feel. You can appreciate the benefits that it's doing to your blood values. You can appreciate the weight maintenance that it's giving you. You can appreciate the example that you are to your kids, your friends, your family. You don't have to love the exact thing that you're doing itself, as long as you can find value in whatever it is you're doing. And I always stress to people that a good example of this is Muhammad Ali. And he had a quote where I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact quote, but he says that he hated every second of training, but he loved winning. Loving training would be optimal, but you don't have to be very successful for the rest of your life. But you do have to understand why you're doing it, the benefits that it brings to your life, and the value that you can find in the process. And again, this is all part of that whole mindset thing, setting up proper expectations, setting up the right habits and routines, because we know that we should be eating better, but we might not know how. You might not know, okay, well, maybe I should be setting a goal of 5 or 6 servings of fruits and vegetables daily. Maybe I should be actually paying attention to if the fact there's fiber in my diet beyond Metamucil.
And I appreciate the call out there. Honestly, we get that question a lot, Alan.
I know. I'm like, what? That's so
can't
funny
I just
you say
take
that.
Metamucil? I'm like,
yeah,
to help. Yeah.
What do you think about Metamucil, Beth? I think you should eat a fucking vegetable or a bean.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
right.
Okay,
I don't.
Lentils.
So fiber itself certainly has benefits, but what I don't think that people understand is that we're using higher fiber whole foods as a proxy for high nutrition content. And so it's not just about the fiber. It's about the fiber. It's about the vitamins. It's about the minerals. It's about the phytonutrients.
Micronutrients, yeah.
I've been talking about that a lot recently. Like, guys, it's not just about the macros. It's not about
right.
It's not about the protein or fiber. Those things are important, but guys, there's so much more to it than just that.
Yeah.
I think you know what IIFYM is?
If it fits your macros.
Yeah, if it fits your macros.
That's how I started on my own fat loss journey that actually led me to sustainable fat loss 12 years ago. Was after I got off the intermittent fasting bandwagon 12 years ago. I found if it fits your macros. Yeah. So
to your point of what you were talking about, where it's not just macros that matter, I think that people got confused with IIFYM. They thought it was a diet. It's not a diet.
It's not.
It never has been a diet.
Influencers abused it, of course.
100%. Yeah. And a lot of coaches don't realize that it's not a diet. Diets have guidelines or underlying methodology. This has none of that. You can be following IIFYM and make it off of Pop-Tarts.
Right.
IIFYM is a simplified way, and sicko is the same thing, calories in, calories out. It's a simplified way to explain energy balance.
Yeah.
It's not a diet. It explains whether or not you're going to gain or lose weight. It doesn't describe what you gain, what you lose, or total health.
Yeah.
And the reality is, no matter what we're striving for, whether that's losing body fat, gaining muscle, getting better at performance, at base, we should be getting healthier.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't describe health, there is an inherent potential error in play. And that doesn't invalidate anything that IIFYM teaches you.
Right.
What it does is it says it's folly to think that this is the entire story.
Right. It's really great for honestly having a healthy relationship with food, right? I think that's what those, saying calories in, calories out, or IIFYM, I think it's great for that, but it definitely requires more nuance, and that's not all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think that if people really want to go down that road, a good way to be able to look at this is most people understand that we should be making a diet based off of whole minimally processed foods, right? There's literally no intelligent professional that would argue against that. IFYM is a great way to say, hey, you can fit a donut into your day in many cases, and you can be just fine. And so what we want to do is we want a good relationship with food. We don't want you neurotic. We don't want to create orthorexia nervosa.
Mm-hmm.
But a good guideline for people is to consider, based on whatever your goals are and where your current body composition is, 5 to 20% of your daily calories can be considered discretionary calories. 95 to 80% should be whole minimally processed foods. If you start to think about it that way, you start to move more into a better, more knowledgeable position to make smarter choices for your food. And the reason that there's a range, and it's a decently broad range, is because it depends, again, on your goals and body composition. If you are a lean person who is looking to build more body size and you're a very active person, so you need a large amount of calories, hey, you can probably go up to 20% of your day and brownies if you want.
It still gives you plenty of room for the other nutrients that you need.
Yeah, you're meeting the needs that you have for health.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a female who is 112 pounds and you're about to step foot on a bodybuilding stage, which means you're 15 to 17% body fat, if you're very good, you're probably going to be closer to 5%.
Right.
Yeah.
And people really,
or even none at all if you're like stage ready, right?
Even none at all. Yeah. I mean, that's an extreme example, but you're right.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. And so what I'm saying is for general recommendations, I say 5 to 20%.
I see.
And people can argue that, but I want to give an example of where we might be moving more towards the 5%. If you've got very, very distinct goals for yourself and progress, I need to see the scale move every 2 weeks. I need to see fat loss. I need to see my measurements go down. Well, you might want to be more towards the 5%.
Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, but this is your choice. And again, what we were talking about before is giving people choice. We can give them the information that they need to make the proper choices, but then it's ultimately their choice. You can't beat biology. And so all we can do is we can lay out what biology allows us to do based off of the best current evidence. And then it's your choice. And if you choose to go outside of that, I mean, that's Russian roulette in a way. It's Russian roulette either with your health. It could be Russian roulette with your progress. It could be Russian roulette with your emotional health, because if you're consistently getting, 50% of your calories from foods that make you feel guilty, maybe that's a problem there.
Yeah.
But either way, it can be really problematic. And so having some guardrails there, like I said, what would a healthy person do? Well, that we probably should be eating whole minimally processed foods. But then a coach brings it up to you, well, maybe 5 to 20% of that can be outside of that. But then that constitutes that 80 to 95% is the majority whole minimally processed foods. Okay, I finally have something that I can use that is practical and I can understand it rather than it feeling confusing.
Yeah.
I like that. The rail guards. Yeah. Rail guards.
It's like bowling and putting those bumpers in the gutters.
Yeah.
What a good coach does, what you guys do, is you put the bumpers in the gutters.
I like that.
And I think that this is the confusing thing for most people and why they start to follow those 2 million follower accounts, because the 2 million follower accounts promise you these results that may be misrepresentations of certain things. And what's funny is you can defend a lot of what these guys say, especially the appeals to nature fallacy guys. You can defend what they say to a point, except for the fact that they're probably causing orthorexia. What you can defend them with, and what their supporters do defend them with, is, oh, you don't need bullshit in your diet. You don't if you were a robot.
Right.
But the single mother of four who's 45 years old working 2 jobs, probably needs a fucking cupcake every now and then.
Yeah, we're not robots. Like, we have emotions.
Right.
Imagine that.
Right. And shit, even my example before of the 112-pound female that's 15% body fat that's about to step on stage. I mean, there's probably some orthorexia in play there, because typically there is with bodybuilders.
In bodybuilding, yeah.
But you know, and I'm a hobbyist bodybuilder myself, so I have no distinct hate for these people. What I am saying is you have to be very mentally and emotionally strong to do this type of thing without causing problems, and not everybody's that way.
Totally.
And so when we get these people that push at its root a good message of eat whole foods, that's great. When they start to misrepresent how that can affect you psychologically, emotionally, and with sustainability, then that's a real problem.
I agree with you. That's such a good way of looking at it. Like, I want to disagree with a lot of the messages of like, eat these whole foods and stop eating so many highly processed foods and so much.
It's the way I go about it.
Right. But
come on, guys,
I can't have those other things ever, or I'm dead.
Right.
Or the fact that you're telling me I can't have this, but then you're selling an identical product. No, that's where I draw the line.
It's like I get accused of promoting unhealthy foods, right? Like I tell people to basically eat fucking ding dings and ho-hos all day. It's like, no, I'm saying it's okay to have these things once in a while. They're not going to fucking kill you, but you still need to get those nutrient dense foods in most of the time. You know, I'm not telling you this is the only way you can eat anything you want all the time.
It's because you're taking a logical and essentially scientifically backed stance that people are going to misconstrue it. When you say you can have a Pepsi, then influencer A with 2 million followers is going to be like, look at this shit. She says that you should only drink Pepsi every day.
It's a straw man.
I did not say that.
Exactly.
I said that you can have a Pepsi and you're going to be just fine. And so they'll really rile up their people. And, you know, just like you were talking about with kind of being misrepresented. I had a question in my Q&A yesterday, and I do a lot of Q&As in my stories because I find that they're really great. I also find that I lose a lot of followers because of them. And so what's really funny is when I do debunkings, I'll do a debunking of, I'm very much, I believe that optimal health is for omnivores. I mean, biologically, you can't even argue that humans aren't omnivores. Just look at our teeth. There's a reason that we have teeth that are shaped for chewing, teeth that are shaped for shredding. It's because we were built to eat multiple different types of food. And so I will always push the omnivore angle because also research backs that up as the healthiest overall diet.
Yeah.
And you can say plant-based, but plant-based with lean meats, whole grains, dairy, if you can digest dairy, it's all perfectly fine. And so I'll make debunking posts where I'll say, hey, look, lean red meats seem to be perfectly fine in a diet. And here's the research that suggests this. And the carnivores are like, yeah, he's one of us. That's awesome. Follow. And then I'll be like, yeah, but you should also eat fruits and vegetables. And the vegans are like, yeah, he's one of us. Follow. And then they'll see me make in the Q&As or a new debunking.
So you were confirming their biases until you weren't.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden they'll see the Q&A and they'll be like, fuck this guy. He's on the other side. And so it's really hard to toe that center line.
That's hilarious.
So yesterday there was a question that I get. And the more that you do debunking, I feel the more that you see, but it's banned in Europe when that's almost never the case. It is literally something that people that have never looked into things use as a fallback. And so one of the questions was asking about Red 40. Red 40, based on the research in realistic human intakes for adults that are otherwise healthy, doesn't do shit. I mean, you don't even digest it. You pass it right out. And so it's not really problematic in any way. And so somebody asked about it and they're like, well, I know that it's banned in Europe. So, you know, why do we have it? And I'm like, it's not banned in Europe. It's called Allura Red AC in Europe. They just changed
called something different. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also called like E129 or something like that. Don't quote me on the number. It's E1 something. They have a designation for it, but it's Allura Red AC and they just changed the name and it's completely illegal there. But you constantly hear these weird arguments about all these different things out of kind of ignorance. And and particularly when you're taking that moderated stance like you take and you say, okay, you can have a ding dong, it's going to be turned around by people that disagree with you to Beth says that you should eat ding dongs. I'm not advocating you eat ding dongs.
Right.
I'm saying you might want a ding dong from time to time.
If you want a ding dong at night, like one time a week, okay, go for it. You know, and
you
that's
want a ding dong at night.
Yeah, there we go. This is the soundbite. This is the soundbite from the podcast that needs to go out. Beth recommends you have a ding dong at night.
If you have a ding
dong at night, you're not gonna die.
It's very satiating.
Ding dong a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah.
I was going to mention the vegan and carnivore thing because I actually just experienced that a couple weeks ago when I told people to say that you're a fucking adult and to eat your vegetables. The carnivores came for me for saying that, and now
they do that.
Now I'm a vegan soy boy because of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so yeah.
I changed your name.
Fucking eat steak like 3 or 4 times a week. Come on.
I changed your name to vegan soy boy on my phone.
Ah, damn it! Like, carnivores fooled my plans.
So, I mean, this is the funny thing about dealing with Gen Pop. It's weird because I actually said this the other day. Nutrition these days, and it probably has always been like this, but I've just been seeing it more with social media. Nutrition these days is almost treated like a religion rather than a science.
We talked about that with our other friend, Allan.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, we did.
Good. Yeah, we're on the same page. We're essentially just a multi-ethnic sane person.
We need Allan and Allan on the show.
Yeah. and so you know what? I actually bet he would be up for it if you invited both of us because we love doing stuff together. Yeah. So
don't tempt us.
We're doing it.
Don't threaten us with a good time. But it's funny. It's funny that it's such a religious experience for people these days. Mm-hmm. And I've got some ideas about this, but why do you think that is? And then I'll kind of give my thoughts on this.
Why do you think it's seen as a religion?
Why do you think people treat it more like a religion rather than science or actual logical information?
I feel like people just need, I don't know, people just fuck. Why do I think people treat their diets like a religion? Because they need something to identify with. They need something to make themselves feel better about themselves, honestly.
I think that what you're hitting on is probably very intelligent. I think that people like to feel special. They like to feel in the know. They like to feel like underdogs. And the only reason that I kind of pushed along this train of thought is I want people that are listening to this, probably the people that are going to listen to this are very intelligent and don't need to hear this, but hopefully we can catch some and help them. I want people that have been influenced by these extreme dichotomy, be very polarizing thought processes. Ask yourself, is this information actually objective, or do I feel like this makes me, do I have an in? Do I know something that other people don't know? Does it make me feel special? Is it the feeling that I'm getting involved with rather than the information? And if we start to look at it this way, we can stop convincing ourselves of incorrect things. And I think that carnivore and vegan is a very cogent example of this. If you're carnivore or vegan, they're very similar to me. Unless you're doing it for like moral purposes, in which I could argue against that too for veganism, that makes a little bit more sense to me than the health aspect because the science isn't there. But if you're really invested in this emotionally, you're going to start to see things the way that you want to see them. And so what you're going to end up doing is you're going to go on Google and you're going to say, is carnivore the best diet? And if you type that into Google, you're only going to get hits that show carnivore is the best diet. If you go to Google and you write benefits of veganism or benefits of a plant-based diet, you're only going to see the benefits. So try to stay as objective as possible. Realize these potential emotional and mental stumbling blocks that we have because we're human and we all fall for this stuff, all of us included, and try to be as objective as possible. But then when you start to do your own research, ask people that you believe are authorities on the topic. Ask if they can explain what the other side is viewing and why that might be wrong. People are really good at giving themselves some backing, but can you explain why the other person is wrong? That is key when you're talking to somebody that is trying to essentially debunk what the other side is saying. Can you explain their stance? Once you can explain their stance, can you explain why that might not be true? So, can icing increase dopamine? Yes. Why is this not practical? Because 10 minutes of cycling does the same thing. Doing this multiple times a week lowers that dopamine hit. You have to do an hour to do it. Why don't you spend your time doing something more important? All of a sudden, things start to fall into place, and it makes sense of why I was potentially being manipulated in the first place. And so staying objective about this type of thing is really important, and it's very difficult because the way that information is presented on social media is polarized, no matter what it is. And hyperbole makes good content.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to pull a Beth and start screaming fuck and then give the good information. But then you give it from a standpoint where you are rational. And that's what I really like about you, is that you go from that to being rational with your message. And I think that it's really difficult to vet this type of stuff as Gen Pop because you don't really know what to look for. And hopefully some of the things that we're talking about today can give you a little bit better of a point. And then you start to take that to your practices with, okay, educate yourself on this topic is something that people always say, or do your research. But doing your research is a lot harder than it sounds.
Yeah, you can't just be like, do your research. It's like Google random fucking articles that aren't.
Yeah, nobody knows how to do research. Let's not just tell people to do their research.
I mean, you pretty much have to have some extensive training to be able to understand.
Yeah.
Research.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I don't even fully understand research, right? And
I don't blame you
to do that. That's why I like people like you and our other friend Allan, because you guys are the experts and you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult. And I think that people want to just have their preconceived notions validated in a lot of cases. And again, this goes back to things are very religious experience, or it just makes us feel good about ourselves. It makes us feel like, we're making the right choice. And also, if there is some secret, we were not brought up carnivore, but carnivore is the secret, or we weren't brought up vegan, but vegan's the secret, then the efforts that we put in the past weren't failures. They were because we didn't know the secret. And this makes people able to cope with those failures a little bit better. And I really want to emphasize that failing in fitness and nutrition, you're going to do it. You're all going to fail. Every one of you is going to fail. Please put this as the soundbite for this. You're all going to fail as nutrition. But the important thing is it a temporary failure or is it a permanent failure? If it's a temporary failure, you look back on what you did over the past week or two or day or whatever it is, evaluate the situation, ask yourself what you could have done better, write it down, and then put that forward in the future. That's what every successful person does. And that means you're resilient. Temporary failure does not mean that you're a failure. It means that you're learning and you're a human. So you can have that ding dong at night. But are you having that ding dong every night? That sounds like a good week, but maybe it's not the right choice for you.
Maybe you need to put the ding dongs down for a little bit.
A little bit. I think that giving yourself a little bit of grace about these things is really important. But I also think that the fact that we don't want to feel like a failure, we don't want to feel incompetent. Feeling competent is a very, very powerful thing. And when we're trying to do something that we probably know what we should be doing in general, like fitness and nutrition, I mean, I should be working out more often. I only work out once every 2 weeks. I should be eating more fruits and vegetables. I don't really eat those. I'm using Metamucil all the time for some reason. and I'm both backed up and crapping myself all the time. And so, there's so many things that people try because they want to avoid that feeling of attempting something that they probably have tried before and failing again. And I agree. I understand. It's scary. But if you start looking at it as a learning experience, it becomes a lot less scary.
Yes.
Mindset, right?
Yeah, it is all mindset.
It's all about your perception.
It's like, what have I learned from this? What can I do better next time?
Exactly. And things like, I mean, when you talk to clients, I'm sure that you do this too. Things like food diaries are very important.
Yeah.
Particularly the first few months that you're really getting into something, because I don't think that people realize how much experiences influence the way that you eat. And to make people feel a little bit better, I mean, you're gonna find really quickly as I talk that I'm a fucking nerd, but it can be beneficial in some ways. They have done studies on emotional eating, and you had said, Matt, that you were looking into emotional eating, or you did content on emotional eating, so maybe you've run across this too. When there was a study, and I can get you the reference if you would like later. I can't remember the exact reference, but what they did was a twin cohort, and they looked at twins, and they tried to figure out, okay, emotional eating response, is this genetic or is this a learned experience? And when they looked at genetic twins, so this is the best possible control that you can have over the situation, they found that it was nearly 100% a learned experience. Now, this is wonderful because this tells you that if you've learned shitty habits,
You
You can unlearn shit.
You can change. You're not doomed.
This is empowering because research suggests that you are not doomed because of your parents. And when you are living with obesity, it can be overwhelming because you do deal with challenges that a naturally skinny person doesn't deal with. Nobody's conceding that. No one's saying that you don't. You absolutely do. You have a potentially discordant hunger drive. You feel hungrier than they do. You maybe have a sedentary job. Maybe because of obesity, your joints hurt. And so the entire idea of getting up and walking can be a very scary thing. Maybe getting into the gym itself can be intimidating. And so you deal with stuff that, skinny as shit Allan didn't have to deal with. But just like learning from your eating experiences and having that food diary to understand what emotional things am I going through that are potentially leading to feelings of loss of control, to binges, to emotional eating. Knowing that you can learn from that and overcome it is a very, very powerful thing.
Yeah.
Accepting that you have messed up is not weakness. It is necessary to getting better at anything that you do.
It means you're human. It's part of the process.
And so by knowing these things, you can actually acceptance of the fact that you've screwed up is necessary. Once you do that, that's where you can start to make those changes of, okay, well, what do I do to make it better in the future? And if you start to look at it as a learning experience, life becomes a hell of a lot better.
Yeah. And trying harder usually isn't the answer if you keep failing, right? And making these mistakes.
So this goes back to the whole am I fat because of a willpower problem?
Right.
Now this is an interesting conversation because coaches will say it's not willpower. There's a lot of different things. There's certainly part of it that's willpower. That is a part. You cannot deny that. However, I don't think that it's predominantly willpower.
I agree.
I think that we don't, again, we're going to keep going back to habits, mindset, and routine, but that's because it's so fucking important.
Right.
If you don't have the education and the habits set up to lead you to success, you're going to be dealing with a lot more challenges to your willpower than a person that has that set up. And
it's
so
kind of like an infinite finite resource, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. If you've got shitty sleep, if you are constantly tempted because of your food environment, if you're never dealing with your emotional eating because you're never directly addressing it, and skinny as shit Allan didn't have emotional eating problems when he was growing up because he just didn't learn that. I didn't, it wasn't something that I learned, so I don't have it. But we can guide you to becoming aware of this. And then setting yourself up for the best success possible. And how do you set yourself up for the best success possible? You plan to succeed. You remove those temptations from your home if you can that are constant.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got Oreos in your cupboard, your significant other, someone who's broken into your house, somebody's going to eat that.
Yeah.
And so if this is a challenge for you, remove it or slowly give yourself the grace to, okay, I'm going to have 3 of these a day. Oreos a day. And then the next week I'm going to have 2. And then I'm going to have 1 or whatever it is, desensitize yourself to these types of things in some way, whether it's removing it from your house, understanding that as you get better feelings of control, you can reintroduce it at a later date. I don't like the idea of let's take something out forever unless it's that person's choice. But I do find value in some cases as a last gap measurement. Okay, well, let's say, okay, will you be okay with removing this from your house for 4 weeks?
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. And usually the first 2 weeks are pretty rough. And then a lot of times people are like, you know what, I'm okay without it. And it's my decision. Good. It's your decision.
Yeah.
And so we can now move forward. But usually it helps. Yeah. Usually it helps with these types of things to give them a time frame and say, can you do this for 4 or 6 weeks? Or whatever it is, because at least when you've got a time frame in play, 1, they're agreeing to it, and 2, that it's not forever. So you're essentially it's a fast, but it's a fast from a bad habit that might be built up, or again, to the plan to succeed. What I was getting towards was other things like, spend that time that you would have been ice bathing to prepping food.
Yeah. I like how you're bringing it back to that. I agree. Like your time can be better served elsewhere.
Oh yeah.
Time and energy.
Yeah, I mean, we
spend on the minors.
We spend so much time on minutia bullshit on social media. It's amazing.
It really is. It really is. Last week, our episode was titled "Stop Being So Fucking Gullible." So yeah, for sure.
we're covering a lot of how to get around that. Hopefully, with some practical advice on.
I agree. This is really good information. You're really showing people how to filter all the bullshit that's out there.
Yeah.
And think critically. Critical thinking is a skill.
It is, and it's something that's often overlooked. And again, one of the things that we mentioned that I think that again bears repeating is that do your research is such a shitty thing to say to people.
If somebody says do your research, that's like an instant red
they
flag.
Literally have no idea what they're talking about.
Unfollow. Go to straight to prison.
They have no idea. They either have no idea what they're talking about, or they don't have the understanding to be able to explain it.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it's infuriating when people do that, because how is Gen Pop? How are you going to give somebody that, like, it's like coming to me and being like, okay, so when my car breaks down, I take it to a mechanic because I have no idea what I'm doing. Instead of, if this was an analogy, people would be like, well, why don't you just look it up on YouTube and then fix your own car? Well, one, it's not worth my time. Could I do it? I probably could, but I would have to go through tons and tons of information to figure out what are the multiple ways to do this, who's the right one, and is this a good use of your time? No. So go to professionals, but use what we talked about earlier. Ask them for their stance on it. Ask them for the other person's stance on it. Ask them to explain both sides and why one may be more reputable than another. Ask them, are there any caveats to this, and where are the holes in the knowledge? Because we don't know as much as we think we know about nutrition.
We definitely don't.
Yeah.
Anybody else claiming otherwise is a charlatan, probably. Like, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, right?
It is. And the one thing that I will tell people, if anybody has biohacker, if anybody has gut health expert, if anybody has typically, these types of things are red flags.
Cortisol mommy.
If anybody talks about cortisol or micromanaging insulin for people that aren't diabetic,
right.
If anybody is telling you to do any of these things, they are 100% blowing smoke up your ass.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Allan, we got to wrap things up. I actually have parent duty here in a few minutes to go pick my son up from school, but we need like a part 500,000, I think, of this.
I know. We definitely need another job. This has been fun.
I thank you guys so much for inviting me on and for letting me ramble so much.
We love it. We love it.
I don't
think it's rambling. I
love it. This is great information, honestly.
Yeah. So hopefully, and again, I think that a lot of what we push is really on the same page, and that's one of the reasons that I respect you guys so much, and one of the reasons that I wanted to collab with you guys so much.
Oh yeah.
And hopefully have some more opportunities for that in the future. But yeah, I do want to thank both Matt and Beth for allowing me on here and spending some time with me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great. And we're going to have you on again, if you wouldn't mind.
We definitely will.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
There's the invite right there. But before you go, Allan, give yourself a shout out. How can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
Sure. You can check out my website at mauiathletics.com, MAUI, or check out my Instagram, Dr. Allan, ALLAN, Bacon. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, certainly shoot me a DM.
There we go.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for being here. We'll chat soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Hope you enjoyed this episode, so why not share with a friend who needs to hear it? Send us a DM on Instagram or email us at cutthecrappod@gmail.com and join our Patreon at patreon.com/cutthecrappodcast. As always, we appreciate you and thanks for being here.